Good evening, YouTube. This is installment, I think, 8 now of the Banshee total refurbishment and rebuild from the ground up. I wanted to go over a few things. If anybody's doing an engine rebuild, I wanted to go over a few things that's kind of specific to this motor, since you have a 2-stroke and it's a 2-cylinder side by side. There's a few interesting things when putting this together, and I wanted to go over it. And if you've never done pistons before and never did a top end before, I'm going to go over that. We already did the bottom end, so we're not going to talk about the bottom end. But I just wanted to real quick recap. We've got all the gearing in. This is the bucket, the basket rather, for the clutch. It's in with its main gear here. That hooks into this gear, which is press fit onto the crank. There's the metal, I believe they're called Woodruffs, or I'd like to use the word dowel is better. I don't think we can see it down in there. But this guy was a pain in the ass to get on. So I recommend one of two things. Either try and slide it on and then put the metal shim. Well, let me see if I have another metal shim around here. I don't think I do. No. Then try and put the metal shim in there. Or if you have the metal shim in, you're going to have to put a piece of wood on here, and you're going to have to drive it in with a mallet. Not a rubber mallet, but you're going to have to use, I had to use a 4-pound mallet. I had to use this guy right here, which is a 4-pound mallet. And I had to drive it in. I had to take a piece of wood. My wood split, but I got it all the way in. This has to sit flush with the clutch basket. You see this? It was sitting out about a 1/2 inch on me, and I kept trying and trying to get it in there. I tried to use the retaining nut to kind of slide it down, and this stripped out. Thank God the crank threads. The crank is made out of a harder metal than the nut, so I was able to save that. But I destroyed, and luckily I had bought 2 nuts. I had bought one by mistake, an extra one. So anyhow, I had one to fall back on. This is going to sit flush with the end of the crank, so you know you're in the right place. This right here, this is the gear that runs your oil pump. And I have a brand new oil pump that I put together. This is your oil pump assembly. Okay, you have a metal shaft, you have a pin that holds this on, and then you have a washer and a retaining C-clip. This sits in like that. Okay, so it sits right in there. Well, I'm not going to move it right now because I have these guys just sitting where I want them. But anyhow, so you need to have enough clearance. You see, there's just barely any clearance between your drive gear on the crankshaft. You see that down there? It's maybe like 1/8 of an inch at the most, maybe even a 1/16. So that's why this has to be all the way in. And then this rides on here. Okay, I have to take this apart and put it in the outer case, but I just wanted to have it assembled and just to show you what it looks like when it's ready to go. All right, since you're in there, if you're doing this, you might as well just spend the extra money and just put a whole new. The old one was, well, this was kind of getting a little long in the tooth, but this was still in good shape, and the shaft is still in good shape. But that's the old one. And that sits in here, okay? So this part is going to sit down in here, and then you're going to have to put that pin through and then sit your main gear on there, and then put the washer and the C-clip, and that holds this together. But another word to the wise I want to say about this, okay? You see this is all full of gunk in here because this was the old one. There is a bushing, an oil seal, and then there is a bearing. But they, unbeknownst to me, they sit on this side. And for some reason, they have a piece of a metal flange there, an aluminum flange that is part of the case. So I was using a 17 millimeter socket to drive these out. The oil seal goes on the inside, and then the bearing. So I could see the bearing from the other side, from the inside of the case. I could see the bearing. And I thought that the black part that I was looking at here was the oil seal, but it's actually part of the case. So I don't know if you can see, but I destroyed, I don't know if you can't really see. I guess you can see there. Yeah, there you go. You can see a little bit. I destroyed the case. So that was a $110 mistake. So I bought a whole new case. So whenever you're driving this out, get like a punch, and I'll show you what I used to finally get it out. Okay, you're gonna need a big punch like this. The big punch is just barely fits in the bearing, but it will go down through here. So you'll be able to drive this out and the oil seal without damaging this. So use a punch. Don't use a socket like I did. But I didn't know. This was all black. I mean, completely black. So I thought this was actually the rubber bushing, or rather the rubber oil seal. The other thing on here, the other thing to look at is there's a valve here that you're gonna have to buy a new valve if you're changing out your case. I think this was like $10 or something like that. And then you're gonna put that on here, drive it in there with a piece of wood, and then this goes up. I think it's a vent to keep the pressure down inside the case. That's probably what it is. One other thing on here. Okay. There is a, where are you? Where is it? Maybe it's not on here. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Okay. This is a rubber, I can't even get it out. But this is a rubber seal that blocks. I guess this case is probably used for multiple types of quads. So there's a rubber seal. Make sure if you're buying a new outer case, you buy this rubber seal, you buy this vent, and then you're gonna need a whole new bearing and oil seal and gears. And I would just redo the whole thing if you're buying a brand new case, and just go fresh with everything. But make sure if you're buying the thing, you're buying the outer case, buy this rubber, because it doesn't come with it. I bought the outer case and it didn't have the rubber, so I had to go ahead and buy the rubber also. And then I bought this because I didn't know if I was going to be able to drive it out or not. I was able to drive it out, but I don't know if the seal is broken on it or the rubber is damaged now that I drove it out. But that I drove out with a socket. I used a small socket and drove it out of its seat there. Okay, all right, so that's it for the outer case. Here's our, so this will go inside the clutch basket. This is where your what do you call it? Your friction plates and your, I can't think of what the other one's called, but you know, they go interchangeable. And then this is your outer that goes on there, and then you put the springs through here, and you bolt it down. Okay, I had to get a new kick shift start, or kickstart rather, lever. It didn't have it in the kit with the stuff that I had in the box. And we cleaned this up. This looks nice now. We cleaned this up, and this is the other side, the outer case. I wanted to go over pistons real quick. If you're doing pistons, and you're gonna have to have this arrow, all right? There's an arrow on all the pistons. See that arrow right there? See that arrow? The arrow points towards the exhaust port. The arrow always points towards the exhaust port. So make sure you put your piston in with the arrow pointing towards the front of the engine, the exhaust port. Another thing on the heads, okay? We put the cylinder on. I have coolie heads. This is an aftermarket coolie head that the guy had, okay? Cool head. It's way thicker than the OEM head, okay? It has great flow through for the coolant, the engine coolant, to keep the engine cool. So these I bought stock head studs. Well, they don't work. You gotta buy these aftermarket ones. I found them on Amazon. I'm gonna show you the box and the model number. Sorry. Okay. Cool head stud kit, 10 pieces, Pro Design, X003, A as in Adam, Y as in Young, M as in Mary, I as in Ida, E as in Edward, Z as in Zebra. That's the model number, and it's Cool Head Stud Kit, all right, made by Pro Design, or rather for the Pro Design Cool Head studs. The head is made by Pro Design. These are from China, obviously, so they're made out of Chinesium. But I was able to get them in one day from Amazon. So you can see that a stock head stud is substantially shorter. It's about an inch shorter than the ones that you're going to need. And there's 5 on each head. You just run them down till they get all the way, till they seat. And then the longest one goes out here. There's a longer, it's about a 1/4 inch longer than the rest of them. All right, and let me see if I can show you. You can't really tell. But it's a 1/4 inch. It's a 1/4 inch longer. Okay, so this side, we're done. We got the piston in. We've got the cylinder on. I've got it. These get torqued down to 20 foot-pounds. Okay. Make sure you have the right size studs in here too. This one, I could not get the flange nut on. I had to take a grinder and cut it down a little bit. It was the shortest one they come with. It was one of these. I had to take off about this much, about a 1/4 inch, so I could get the flange nut on there. And then I had to do the same thing on this one right here. You can see I cut it, and then I took a file and I cleaned it up. So, and these two, they make sure these are so I had bought these from Yamaha themselves, and these are about a 1/2 inch too long. I had to take these out of the old case, the top case, and they were a pain in the ass. They were in there pretty good, but I had to put some anti-seize and take them out because the ones that I had bought from Yamaha were too long. I'm sure it was my fault in ordering, or maybe it was the guy that was picking and putting the stuff in the box. He gave me the wrong size ones, but these are too long. I want to say they're like probably 5 inches, 4.5 inches, 5 inches long, and these are about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch shorter the ones that are in there. All right, so that's another thing that I found out while I was doing this, putting it together. Now, I'm just gonna go over the piston real quick for you guys if you're doing a top end assembly. Okay, the larger ring, the thicker ring rather, goes on the bottom of the piston. The thinner ring goes on the top. And it's pretty much, you can't make a mistake, because this larger ring will not fit in the smaller groove. You can't get it in there, so you're gonna have to put them in. But I wanted to show you this, okay? There's little studs on the ring grooves. That's where you wanna have your opening, so that when these collapse, they collapse right like that. You see how that is? Let me see if I can focus. Come on, focus. All right, same goes here. See how it collapses on that? And then it won't move, it collapses like that. So just when you're putting your cylinder on, you're gonna have to keep looking at that, make sure it's right, because you gotta squeeze them, and you gotta kind of play with the cylinder back and forth to get it seated on top of the rings, because the rings want to stay open, and you have to kind of like force them to compress, and then you're gonna have to put oil. What I do is I put oil on the piston head on the top, and then I put oil around here, and then I work this cylinder down over the piston. And once you got the rings compressed, you can get it down easy. This is a pain in the ass because this stud is so long. You kind of have to get the piston set, and then also get the cylinder head started on this stud before all the rest. The rest are a lot shorter. So that's that. But I just want to go over one last thing on the piston. Okay, so this is your a bearing set that goes inside the push rod from the crankcase. Okay, so this is sitting inside the top of the push rod. This rides inside it like that, and this is what holds the piston in place. And then you have some C-clips. From trial and error, this is a different piston. This came with my my cylinders, but I used the kit. My wrench rabbit kit came with Vertex pistons, and the Vertex pistons look better than these pistons, so I went ahead and I used those in the build. Okay, but I just want to go over how you do this. So in order to get, and you're going to want to put the C-clip on the inside, okay, because you're going to have a hard time messing around with them. This one you can get to easy on both cylinders, but this one you want to do first. So if this piston we're going to say is going to be the right piston, we want to put this side in first, this side in first. So just from trial and error, I suggest you put this shaft down inside the piston. Okay, now you see the C-clip is going to ride in that groove right there. So you're going to push this in pretty much right up onto that groove like that. Well, a little bit more, but I can't do it with one hand. That way, when you're trying to get this clip in, it's not going to keep popping through. This is going to keep it in place, and you're going to be able to put them in a lot easier. Maybe 2 or 3 tries and you'll get them in. But if you don't have this in there, it's going to take you like 20 tries to get it to seat right. And then the other thing is, you don't want this opening sitting here. You want the opening, best case scenario, sitting like this, but at least have it sitting this way or have it sitting this way. But you don't want the openings to this release. That's where you're gonna stick your pick tool in there if you're changing pistons out, and that's how you're gonna pop them out. So you want this in the other direction. Okay, so once this one is done, you're gonna have to pop this back out. You're gonna put the bearing, you're gonna put the bearing down in here. See, this is your connecting rod. You see down in there? You see how the bearing's in there? You can see it just sitting there. And so you put this inside there. You put the piston down over it, and then you're gonna push this rod through and have it seated all the way against that C-clip, and then you're gonna put the other one in. You're gonna put the other one in. And see how it's sitting in there. This phone does not want to focus tonight. Anyhow, so that's how you do your pistons. Make sure when you're doing it, put your gaskets in and put your guide dowels in so that everything lines up right. That's going to hold this in the right place. It's not going to move on you. If you have these dowels in here, if the dowels aren't there, then your gaskets are going to move on you. But that'll keep the gaskets in place. Lube this up, put your cylinder on, then get it lined up with these, and then get it seated. And then you're going 20 foot-pound on all four of these. 20 foot-pound. You might have to do the same thing I did, cut that down a little short. 20 foot-pound. The reason you have to do that is because the exhaust port is so fat right here that you can't get the flange nut over the full length stud in order to get around this little bump here. All right, so that's pretty much everything. We have we've got the stator and the flywheel all put together. We have this isn't tightened down yet. I'll do that once final assembly's done. This is your sprocket, your front sprocket. I went over this already with you guys. This is your kickstart back here. And we had that stud that we had to put in the top case in order to hold the spring. So this will drive this gear out. When you kick down on this to kickstart, it'll drive this gear out. The gear will engage here, and it will spin everything. This gear is on the inside of your what do you call it? Your clutch bucket, and it'll spin everything. So it's a little bit of a different setup than some other, like 4-strokes are definitely set up different than this. So, but that's it. Any questions? Leave it down in the comments, and I'll come back with another video. I'm gonna have this all buttoned up. I'll have this closed up. We'll have this all finished. I'll have the heads on probably, and I'll just walk through any issues that I might have come up with. So the main thing, remember about these pins, that's where you want the openings of your rings. When you're putting your C-clips on your piston, it's best to put that rod in there so that they don't pop out, and then you can get them on easier. The bigger ring goes on the lower ring groove. The smaller ring, the thinner ring, goes on the upper ring groove. Make sure you get this rubber piece for your outer case. If you're putting the new case on, get a new breather valve, and make sure you don't damage your case, and then you don't have to do what I'm doing. All right. I'll have all this together too, and I'll have the. What do we have here? Where's my what do you call it? That's the other thing. Make sure you have new. There he is. Make sure you have new oil seals. You might as well do all new oil seals. And that's it. Any questions or concerns or issues or anything, leave it down in the comments. And if you like this video and you like this project I'm doing, please like and subscribe. God bless. Have a good night. Mike Machines out.